This is Unit 4, Level 4, Multiplying Fractions. We're going to start off by multiplying a fraction times a whole number. And so I have what looks like our decimal grids that we used last unit. And we're going to pull those back out and we're going to relate this back to what we did with decimals. So we're going to pick a decimal, a decimal, we're going to write it as a fraction, and then we're going to go ahead and multiply it by a whole number. So what we're going to do is we're going to take 3/10. Now when we wrote 3/10 as a decimal, we would write it as decimal point 3. We can also write 3/10 as a fraction, 3/10. And we're going to take that times the whole number 3. So we're going to make 3 groups of 3/10. Now when we were doing this as a decimal, 3/10 would be represented by 3 of these rods. The same is true when we're talking about fractions. If we forget the lines that break these into cubes and just look at the lines that break these into sections, what I just colored is 3 of those rods out of 10 total rods. So I made one group of 3/10. When we're multiplying by a whole number, we know that we're just making whole groups of that. So I'm going to go ahead and make a second whole group of those 3/10. So I'm going to color another 3 rods. I'm going to do the same thing again because, again, I need to take 3/10 times 3, so I need 3 whole groups of them. So I'll make another group. So 3/10 times the whole number 3 is equal to what I have completely colored in here, which is 9 out of those 10 groups. I have 9 rods out of those 10 colored in. So 3/10 times 3 is 9/10. I can do that mathematically if I change 3 into a fraction. To change 3 into a fraction, we know anytime we have a whole number, all we have to do is put that whole number over the number 1, because 3 divided by 1 is 3. Then we simply multiply across. 3 times 3 is 9. 10 times 1 is 10. I can then check to see if I can simplify before coming to my final answer. I cannot simplify 9/10, so there is my final answer. And this is how we multiply a fraction times a whole number, both by using the model and by doing it mathematically. When we multiply a fraction times a fraction, we can do it in much the same way as we did with decimals. When we're taking a fraction times a fraction, we're taking a part of another part. So for example, if I'm going to take 1/2 times 3/4, and you see my model over here to the right, I have that model broken into 2 halves right now, and I'm going to just go ahead and color in one of those halves. Next, I'm going to split my model going the other way into 4ths. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to shade 3 of those 4, going the other way. Just like with decimals, our answer comes here in the overlapped part. How many sections do I have that have both colors colored in that are overlapped? And I have 1, 2, 3. So my answer is 3 out of how many total pieces I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 out of 8 pieces. So 3/8 is my answer. To do that mathematically, I wouldn't need to change anything into a fraction because they're already in fractions. All I have to do is simply multiply across. 3 times 1 is 3, 2 times 4 is 8, 1/2 times 3/4 is 3/8. Now if I want to take a mixed number times a mixed number, I first have to change them into fractions in order to be able to multiply them. To do that, I'm going to take the whole number times the denominator, 1 times 4 is 4, and I'm going to add the numerator, 4 plus 1 is 5. And so 1 1/4 becomes 5/4. 1 2/3, 1 times 3 is 3, plus 2 is 5, 5/3. I'm then, because I now have 2 fractions, even though they are improper fractions, I have 2 fractions, I can now multiply across. So 5 times 5 is 25, and 4 times 3 is 12. In order to finish this problem, I need to simplify it. We know that there's 2 ways to simplify. The first, I have to check if it's improper. In this particular fraction is 25 is bigger than 12, and therefore it's improper. So I need to take 25 and divide it by 12 in order to change it back to a mixed number. 12 goes into 25 2 times, and I'm left with a remainder of 1. So 25 twelfths becomes 2 and 1 twelfth. I can't simplify 1 12th anymore, so 2 and 1 12th becomes my answer. Multiplying fractions is pretty simple. I just have to make sure that I'm dealing with 2 fractions. So if I have a whole number, I need to put it over 1. And if I have a mixed number, I need to change it into an improper fraction before multiplying. But multiplying fractions is really just multiplying straight across and then making sure that you simplify your answer. This is level 4 from Unit 4, Multiplying Fractions.